It's the summer of 1997. I'm a year into my engineering degree course. This is a picture of me, and that's my ambassador. At precisely 9:55 in the morning, I'd fire up the Ambi's diesel engine and then hurtle into college 10 minutes late. My vernacular professors, they had turned me into a world champion at bunking. And within an hour, I was out of there. 12:10, I would be at my girlfriend's house, who was following the same modus operandi. By 1 p.m., the doorbell would ring and the postman would come in carrying a stack of magazines. And that is what I was there for, to intercept those magazines, particularly the car magazines. Auto India, Indian Auto, Car and Bike International. Now this issue, May 1997, Auto India. This cover story, Fiat Uno versus Maruti Zen, that's a story that we were waiting for 2 years. Now, to give you a frame of reference of how important that story was, probably in today's day and age, that would relate to kind of like a Hyundai Creta versus Kia Seltos, but even more important, because Maruti Suzuki were ruling the roost. They really did not have any rivals. This story was something that we had to read. Now remember, we were two teenagers in an empty house, but all I wanted to do was go through this story. And now, 28 years later, we are kind of recreating the same story, forgone but not forgotten. This is a story that I've been wanting to do for really 5 years now, ever since we kicked off our Gone but Not Forgotten series. That was kicked off during lockdown when we were all stuck. There was no access to new cars. We were all wondering what's going to happen to car journalism with no access to new cars. And that's when we came up on the idea, feature old cars, talk about our stories, our memories of old cars. That's how Gone but Not Forgotten kicked off with my very own Zen. Now, regular viewers will remember that this is not my Zen. My Zen is still around. It's in pieces right now, but not what you think. It's in pieces because I'm resto modding it. So right now the body has been completely stripped down, it's been re-welded, we're repainting it, we got new wheels, new seats, a new engine is on its way and it's going to be hot rodded. So that's going to be a really cool story. Make sure you stay subscribed to the Evo India channel, hit that bell icon and stay notified for that video drop. For now, Fiat Uno versus Maruti Zen, Maruti Udyog Zen, as it was called then.
In Japan, we have all the Chinese proverb. It say, good is good, but number one is better.
The Fiat Uno, absolutely the number one.
Designed by Giugiaro, the Uno was more aerodynamically slippery than a Ferrari Testarossa. Pair that with rugged engines, including a diesel that would come a couple of years later, more rugged suspension, space for a family of 5, something that the Maruti 800 nor the Zen could properly offer. It also had a single wiper like a W124 E-Class. It had all the makings to be the numero uno. But then what started off with a bang fizzled out, and how. Globally, the Fiat Uno was unveiled in 1983 at Cape Kennedy in Florida as a successor to the Fiat 127, and it would go on to become Fiat's best-selling model ever, with over 7 million units sold in a 12-year run. And when that 12-year run ended, all the tooling, the dies were packed off onto a boat and shipped off to Bombay, as it was then known. Now, Premier Automobiles Limited, they were making the Padmini, which was a Fiat. So when Fiat wanted to come back to India, it was only natural that they would tie the knot with PAL to challenge the dominance of Maruti Udyog, as it was then called. In 1997, 4 out of every 5 cars sold in India were Marutis. That was unbelievable domination, and a lot of people hated that. Writing in the September 1995 edition of Auto India, Horma Sorabji, then associate editor, he said, Maruti Udyog must be biting its nails. That's the very first line of the story. You could almost sense the glee in their story that Maruti finally had competition. And the verdict, the Zen is more a yuppie mobile. Yuppie mobile. I don't know what yuppie even stand for. I think those days people like to hate on yuppies like they hate on millennials these days. And then he continues, however, for those car owners who want to graduate to a complete set of wheels, the Uno is the best bet. But then Premier's own workers came to Maruti's rescue. Now, at the launch, it was launched at 3.75 lakhs. People went wild. There were nearly 3 lakh bookings. Premier's own optimistic production numbers were around 40,000 units a year. So you do the math. For 3-4 years, Fiat was sorted for India. And then came a crippling 5.5-month-long strike at PAL's Kurla facility. All those bookings, my granddad, he was also one of those who booked the Uno. None of them were going to get the car. In the first year, 617 cars were delivered. 3 lakh bookings, 617 cars were delivered. And to make matters worse, the AC did not work. Now, the Uno was conceived 12 years ago without an AC. Cheap car in Italy, they don't really need an air conditioner. But in India, the Uno was a premium small car, whatever that meant. And it was going to be factory fitted with an AC. But that AC would not work with our Indian heat and conditions. That called for extensive re-engineering. They took over a year to get that done. So of those 617 cars, all of them were without air conditioning. And now let's make a horrible situation properly nightmarish. Refunds to customers who cancelled their bookings, those didn't come. And that was one of the biggest automotive scandals of that time. Luckily, my granddad, he got his booking back. He took that money, went promptly to Sai Service in Pune and booked a Maruti 800, the one with the 5-speed and 4-valve head. That was a really special car. Check out our Gone But Not Forgotten video to know why that was really so cool. Then we waited 6 weeks. Obviously, you had to wait for cars back then. And then when the car was almost ready for delivery, we went off back to Sai Service, cancelled the 800 and booked a Zen. And that's how in 1996, we became the proud owners of a Zen. The Zen with body-colored bumpers. Now that was an improvement that Maruti Udyog rushed through to tackle the competition posed by the Uno. Not for nothing did the Uno make us delirious with joy. Giugiaro's greatest hits also included the very first Golf and the Lotus Esprit. Now, the Uno's design was definitely boxy. This was a 12-year-old car by the time it came to India, but it had a bigger boot. It had more solid build quality than a Zen, and in the back, you could fit a proper family, which the 800 could never. The Uno that came to India was the midlife 1990 facelift with a new nose from India and a new interior redesigned by Giugiaro himself. It brought in better materials, a larger boot and mechanical improvements. Fire engine was hardly fire-breathing. It made 43 bhp and 71 Newton meters of torque. Obviously, well, carbureted back then. In comparison, okay, it'll start eventually. In comparison, the Zen made 50 bhp. This was also 835 kilos, very light by modern standards, but the Zen was 752 kilos. The Uno did 0 to 100 in 19 seconds. With the AC, it did it in 20 seconds. Yep, in those days, we tested both with and without the AC. The Zen 0 to 100 in 15.36 seconds. With the AC on, it went up to 19.97 seconds. And that's why we call this button the NOS button. You switch it off, switch off the aircon compressor, and you got proper performance. This was a hoot. This is a hoot. Anyway, the Uno had an ace up its sleeve. The Uno D that would come in 1998. That was before the Indica diesel, before the Zen diesel. The Zen diesel, that was the Peugeot TUD5 diesel engine into that Zen, a light car with a very, very heavy engine. With the Uno, the diesel engine was actually well matched to the car. It was a 1.7 litre IDI diesel engine before the days of direct injection, before the days of common rail, before the days of turbocharging as well. Made 57 bhp and 98 Newton meters of torque. It was good for a 0 to 100 time of 23 odd seconds, and it was extremely fuel efficient. Now the diesel engine was 75 kilos heavier than the petrol. The diesel car was 100 kilos heavier, and the coupe, the tracks were wider, both front and rear. It also got an anti-roll bar at the front to tie up the handling. It's not really the epitome of handling. or enthusiasm. But what it did well was go over bumps. That was the real key strength of the Uno, where the Zen felt light, fragile. The Uno had more grown-up road manners. Later on, a Euro 3 compliant fuel-injected petrol engine was added to the mix that put out 63 bhp, 92 Newton meters, and finally added much needed poke to the petrol Uno. But then again, the Zen also got a fuel-injected engine to cope with those emission norms. And was that car an absolute rocket? The 1.2-litre fuel-injected engine, now that gave much needed performance. Top speed increased to 156 kilometers per hour from 135 on the regular carbureted version. And also the Uno, right from the very beginning actually, had an AC cutoff switch. So if you floored it, the AC would cut off and you would continue to retain some amount of performance. Unlike the Zen, which had a NOS button. The most interesting comment on the Uno was that it's not a car for wannabe Schumachers. The steering was woolly and unresponsive, without front anti-roll bars. There was a lot of body roll. There was no precision to it. The chassis didn't really enthuse the enthusiast. No Tokyo Drift kind of things with the Uno. The Zen, on the other hand, it was crisp. It was entertaining. The steering also so communicative. Such a joy. And you can take your liberties with the car, except when the roads get bad. That's when you gotta back off. Others, like my poor car, it starts to squeak and rattle and do all sorts of things. That's the Uno's trump card. Go over bad roads, even at speed, and the bump absorption is pretty good. It deals with potholes with more maturity, better ride sophistication. This is a car that today, as well as back in the day, much better suited to the kind of roads that we find in our country. And the other big improvement of the Uno over the Zen was the turning circle. It has a much tighter turning circle than the Zen. Back then, it wasn't just about performance, it was about trust. And Maruti had that in spades. The 800 was everybody's default first car. The Zen was an upgrade. Sure, it didn't have as much space as the Uno, but it had wide spare parts availability. Spare part prices were lower. The quality was so good, you did not even need all those spare parts. The service network was so widespread. The professionalism and the quality of the dealers was 1,000,000 times better than either Premier or Fiat could offer. On paper though, the Uno trumped the Zen in many other ways. Better door shut quality. Bigger boot, 265 versus 210 liters on the Zen. Better packaging efficiency means more space and easier ingress and egress. Uno had a 30mm longer wheelbase, which meant more space at the back, more headroom. The seat is on an eccentric rail, so when you slide it forward, it also moves up, which serves as seat height adjust. Better fuel efficiency, 16 on the highway for the Uno compared to 15.2 for the Zen, and in the city, 11 for the Zen and 13 for the Uno. But most importantly, the Zen spare parts were cheaper, they were more easily available. Maruti Suzuki's service network was far more widespread and professional compared to Premier or even Fiat. And for the value-conscious Indian buyer, well, that swung everybody towards the Zen.
Any questions?
Yes. कितना देती है?
Even then, the Uno diesel became a favorite amongst taxi drivers. It was cheap to run and had a rugged engine. Post 1998, sales did pick up once those labor issues cooled off, but it never really recovered full momentum, and in 2001, it was put to rest to make way for the Palio, which was going to be a super hit. It also took off really well, like the Uno, but then Fiat's usual problems again struck. In fact, we've got a full Gone But Not Forgotten on the Palio and all its variants. The link is somewhere up here. Do check that out. Globally, the Uno was a mega hit. It was built on the Type 146 platform and manufactured not just in Italy, but also Brazil, South Africa and Pakistan. Some versions ran well into the 2000s. In India though, the reality was grim. Eventually, when property prices in Mumbai really shot up, Fiat in 2007 sold off the Kurla property for 608 crores. That property was initially owned by Premier Automobiles Limited, promoted by the Doshi family. Fiat and PAL got into a partnership in 1995, but in 1998, after all the troubles, Fiat bought out the JV partner and was independent on their own. It was called Ind Auto back then. The Uno had all the right ingredients: a legendary designer, great packaging, lots of space, a diesel engine before a diesel engine was even offered in a small car. But the timing was all off. A few years too late, a few strikes too many, and what could have been a Fiat fairy tale turned out to be a proper disaster. Thank you to Suryakant Chiplunkar for the Uno. Thank you to Prithviraj Bhosle for the Zen. Thank you Cardboard for all these magazines, and of course thank you to Aminora Mall in Pune for the location of this shoot. And of course, before we end, don't you want to hear the verdict of this comparison test 28 years ago? So it says, compared to the Zen, the Uno comes across as inspiring. But then all praise is lavished on the Uno. The Zen, though more advanced and superior, is simply too cramped for the Indian one-car family and is essentially a driver's car for city use. The Uno is decidedly more functional and practical, and hence a more complete car. Complete being italicized. Now, of course, I own a Zen, and similar to what you guys, when you read our verdicts which you don't agree with, you scream blue bloody murder. EcoSport fanboys, I'm looking at you. Similarly, I said, no man, the Zen is better. I threw this copy of Auto India away and we went back to doing what teenagers do when you have an empty house and no parents in the house. But then the Zen also did far more in terms of numbers. The Uno, it remains a footnote in India's automotive history. It's gone, but it's also not forgotten. If you've enjoyed this episode of Gone But Not Forgotten, don't forget to leave us a comment, share this video with like-minded enthusiasts, and of course, give us a like and stay subscribed to the Evo India channel. Hit that bell icon because I've got a story coming up on my Zen once it is ready. Stay tuned for all of that.